Greetings, favorite students. This is Mr. Poley, and welcome to my episode 5 of my flipped classroom videos. This one is about colonial economics, and when we think about colonial economics, we think about three colonial regions. First, let's not forget, um, SOL number 2 is all about how we bring European man, African, and First Americans, how they meet in the Americas, how they interact, and what are the consequences of those interactions. Um, the big picture. During this time frame, early European exploration and colonization resulted in a redistribution of population from Europe and Africa to the Americas. Um, Today, we're focusing on how exploration and colonization initiated worldwide commercial expansion. After all, the Americas were found, and all of exploration that we talk of during the age of exploration has been inspired by the pursuit of trade. They want to go and either buy and sell goods or establish colonies to exploit resources. Um, it's a matter about making that money in places far away and bringing it back to your home country. Adapt to survive. When we study American history, we must acknowledge that the colonists had to adapt to their environment, kind of just like the first Americans did. Uh, and we think in terms of three colonial regions: New England, the Middle Colonies, and the Southern Colonies. Now, here are the states. Here's the states breakup of how these three colonial regions shake out, and we have to kind of think about using our modern knowledge of these places. What's the weather like? What are these places like? And what might the colonists of way back when, what might they have done to survive there? New England includes Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Hampshire, and the middle colonies, they include New York, New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania, and in the South, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Now, what should we consider? We need to figure out how we can learn about these early colonists' lives, um, from their surroundings and how they had to adapt. Think about these different areas of the country. The New England area. What are the seasons like up there? Are the summers hot? The winters cold? Uh, what kind of terrain do they have? Is it along the mountains? Is it in the mountains rather? Or is it a heavily forested area, or is it along the coastline? And if you think about each of those areas, there's certain things that certain resources present, and these different colonial enterprises and settlements, they all had to use the resources they had at their disposal. Um, they had timber. Timber was a big thing in New England, at the various seaports. They made a lot of ships for England, and what type of crops? Could you grow crops year round, or was there a growing season up in the north? People could only do subsistence farming, and down south that is where we would find uh, agricultural based, slave based economy on the plantations. Now, here is a greater detail of what happened in these colonial regions. In New England, shipbuilding, fishing, some of these are in common in certain areas. Shipbuilding, fishing, subsistence farming up north, that's farming for one's family and friends. Uh, Lumbering, eventually manufacturing, because of the bitter cold winters and short growing seasons. New England would be ideal for manufacturing because people could do the work indoors. Uh, Middle colonies, being in the middle, these various seaports would become trade centers: New York, Baltimore, Philadelphia, and of course along the coast, fishing and lumbering. And in the South, plantation farming, where they grew cash crops like tobacco, rice, and indigo, and off in the mountains, where the lower economic people, on the totem pole there, uh, where they hunted and traded. Social characteristics. In New England, society was based on religious standing. However, there wasn't much religious freedom. don't forget, in the Plymouth colony and among the Puritans, if you didn't worship the same way that they did, oftentimes you would find yourself not being welcome. They were intolerant of dissenters. In the middle colonies, they were advocates for religious freedom. You found them among the Quakers in Pennsylvania and the Catholic population of Maryland. Middle class of small farmers, entrepreneurs, and artisans in the middle colonies. And in the South, social status was based on family and land ownership, allegiance to the Church of England, and that group I mentioned earlier in the mountains and lowlands, um, off to the west, there were Scottish and Irish hunters. Now, another phenomenon during this time was called the Columbian Exchange, named after Columbus, of course. This is an exchange of plant and animal products, and as well as some diseases that were brought from one continent to another. They had a terrible effect on the first Americans. Um, here in this diagram, here in this picture, you can see that there was squash, pumpkins, turkeys, peanuts, potatoes, tomatoes, and corn, as well as chocolate coming from the New World. All that would go and be transported and desired in the Old World, and of course we get everything from these diseases to various livestock, which include cattle, sheep, pigs, and horses, various grains, the coffee bean, etc., with olives, etc. So all these products come from the Old World and they go to the New World. Now, triangle trade. This is a phenomenon where slavery was a key part of it. There would be a pattern of trade coming from the colonies here, which would from Rhode Island generally, and from this area of the 13 colonies. They would manufacture rum made from sugar and molasses, received from the West Indies. Um, they would send the rum to Africa. They would buy new slaves. The slaves would be brought back to the West Indies. Some of them would work on the sugarcane plantations. Others would be delivered to the 13 colonies proper. And when we take a look at Africans in our colonial population, you realize from 1650 to 1750 in New England, the middle colonies, and the southern colonies, from anywhere from 2 to 3%, from 11 to 11%, no change. But in the southern colonies, from 1650 to 1750, there was a huge 3 to 40% increase in the number of slaves that were in the southern colonies, obviously engaged in the agricultural slave-based economy on the plantation. Now, mercantilism is another concept. We have to know that Great Britain had a policy in the colonies that created a favorable trade balance for Great Britain. Colonies could only sell their raw materials to Great Britain, and buy finished products back from them. So they could only buy from one place and sell to one place. Colonists wanted to sell their materials to other countries and make their own products. An example of mercantilism would be the colonists selling cotton to Great Britain really cheaply, and then they would end up buying um, expensive clothes back from Great Britain, and this was not a great arrangement. Thank you, and this concludes episode 5 of Mr. Poley's Flip Classroom videos.